And welcome to today's very special meeting of Meaford Council. I am going to forsake the gavel today and declare today's meeting open. And welcome to one of the biggest weeks of the year for us. It's a very important Saturday coming up with the big parade and so many events related to our 150th, our sesquicentennial in the urban Meaford part of the municipality of Meaford. So I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement, and if anyone has it at hand, I believe that Councillor Greenfield is going to do that for us.
I thought you might be looking for that, Mayor Kendra. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. We would like to begin our meeting by acknowledging that we're meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestor shares these lands and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor. And now, if you just join me for a moment of silent reflection on today's business. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? See none, but if it arises at any time, feel free to bring it forward. Are there any announcements around the horseshoe, first of all? There must be announcements this week. Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I'm happy to begin because, as you mentioned, this Saturday is a very, very special day in this municipality as we celebrate our sesquicentennial, our 150th. And the event this Saturday begins at 1 p.m. with a parade, and the floats will gather at the old high school parking lot and travel along Eliza Street, heading down St. Vincent and on to the Harbor Pavilion. And at 2 p.m., festivities will begin at the harbor, which will include some really fun games, old-fashioned games, and egg and spoon race, cornhole, Connect Four, frog flinger, and I can't wait to see if they're using, which I'm sure they're not real frogs, but back in the day they probably did. There'll be tattoos and line dancing and pickleball demonstrations, face painting, magicians, all kinds of displays. The farmers market will be there. There's 150 saplings that will be given away. There's kite demonstrations, a busker's corner, and my absolute favorite, cow pie bingo. And I have to speak to that because once you choose your number on the big bingo card, there will actually be a live cow that will be brought onto the bingo card, and wherever the cow leaves its mark, that individual will be the winner. So lots of fun. There'll be a food truck, vintage cars, and I just want to express, I mean, there's been an incredible volunteer effort put into making this event come together. A week ago on a Sunday afternoon at the library, there was an opportunity for volunteers to come forward to assist with all of the 2:00 events, and they had more volunteers than they could possibly have work for them to do. So it's just really, really amazing. And I also wanted to mention, Your Worship, that on the 23rd of June is the Strawberry Tea in Bognor, and there are very few tickets left. The sittings are at 11 o'clock, 12 noon, or 1 o'clock. So if you want to get a ticket for that one, you can pick that up at the refillery on our main street. And again, I just want to acknowledge the volunteer group who have done the decorating downtown. I think our downtown looks absolutely amazing, and there's actually more yet to come. So keep your eyes peeled, but we've never seen so many flowers. They're just everywhere, and there's new flower boxes and planters, and they're absolutely beautiful. The flags and all the ruching and the banners, and we've just really, really outdone ourselves. So I thank Council for your financial support to make this happen, and the volunteers are absolutely incredible. They have just outdone themselves. So with that, I'd like to call for a ringing of the bells. And thank 365 Sports, who have been the major sponsor for this event outside of the municipality, and they've given a lot of swag as well as financial support. So thank you to Jesse Fulton and 365. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Euring.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. In concert with that, I'll first mention that Councillor Bartley and I are going to actually have the pleasure of serving at the Bogner event. So looking forward to that. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. But in concert with the 150th celebrations, the Craig Gallery has done an amazing exhibition. Last Friday evening, there was their opening reception. It was very well attended, very professionally done, and a lot of great artwork about Meaford. In the back, there is an installation that I really encourage people to go check out. Vic and Mikhail, great supporters of Meaford in general, have set up this installation, and it shows historic Meaford, kind of past and present, with superimposed images of various points around town. They actually did an event, a presentation yesterday, a talk about this, but it's going to be there for till June, July. I should know this. I apologize, I don't know the end date, but it's there for, I think it's there till the end of July. But definitely get down and check it out because it is a great exhibition with lots of artwork pertaining to Meaford from local artists. So it's really worth supporting. Thank you.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mayor Kendrick. Couple of other events that are coming up before the end of June, and they align extremely well with our 150th anniversary. The first one I'll mention is the Leith Summer Festival is back again now. Granted, this is not exactly in downtown Meaford, but it is an annual event, and very special performances out there. The opening concert is on June 22nd at 7:30 p.m. There will be two groups there, a trio and a quartet, and they always provide some very interesting music for the audience. Tickets for the Leith Summer Festival, of course, are obtained through the Roxy Theatre over in our neighbor home sound. And on June 29th at Meaford Hall, there's, I think, going to be a very special performance. The Meaford 150 Showcase will be in concert there. This will involve 4 different acts, musical acts. All of the folks who are involved have certainly connections to our downtown. They're all local talent. $20 for adults and $5 for children. And I think it's a show that everyone could attend and get some enjoyment out of. Thank you, Your Worship.
Any other announcements around the horseshoe? What about, I'll go to CAO, Kim Buckham.
I just want to kind of second thanking everybody, the community groups, the chamber, the municipality, to the decorations are outstanding, and just a couple of other, again, there's so many, it's hard to list them all. But if you are down, you will notice as well as the Meaford flag is flying with the Canadian flag, but also our 150th flag. And again, there's lots of again, flower pot, like just walking around, it's beautiful. All the effort that that folks have put in is well appreciated, and I'm taking pictures and sharing them around, and I can't wait to make another art installation of all the parts that we've been putting together. So it's just amazing.
Great, thank you. Moving on to public participation, just a reminder that members of the public are encouraged to provide council with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released and are limited to 10 minutes. If a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda or to ask a public question of council, they may do so either in person at the council chambers or remotely via Zoom, phone, or internet. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or ask a public question must register in advance with Legislative Services by 10 a.m. on the day of the meeting. And you can do that by contacting sbrown@meaford.ca, 519-538-1060, extension 1170. An email with access information will be sent to those who register for remote participation. Deputations are limited to 5 minutes and public questions are limited to 2. We have no presentations or deputations today. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to ask a question? And seeing none, we'll just move right along. To council inquiries. Any council inquiries of staff today? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one is for Jessica. When I'm out around in the rural community at this time of year, I've generally seen in times past the contractor who cuts the grass along the edge of the roadways. I personally haven't seen that transpiring. That means that I don't go on every road. If it is transpiring, I'm just asking if it is underway.
Through you, Chair, it is the same contractor and he will be doing the work, but I don't think he started yet. And I believe he comes twice a season, so you'll see him around. No problem.
Any other questions? Wow, okay. Moving on then to our consent agenda, and there's only one item, so let's have a motion to put this on the table. The recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford authorize the transfer of $6,210 from the Roads Reserve to enhance the existing roadside vegetation management contract to include hard surface vegetation management in the designated areas within the downtown core. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Uhrig. Any discussion on this? Are you ready to vote on it? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Items for consideration. The first here is be it resolved that bylaw 2433 being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of the 2024 tax rates, establish the due dates, and to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payment thereof for 2024 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A motion to have this on the floor, Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Bell. Any discussion? Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, this is an item that must be dealt with, and the sooner we can pass it, I think the better. I do have a question that pertains to the taxes. We as we go further forward with today's agenda, I think it will demonstrate that our municipality has some fairly commendable numbers as far as investments and reserves are concerned. The first two due dates in a year are late February and late April. I've wondered for the last, I guess ever since COVID struck, and then after COVID, we had inflation strike, and it's still with us. I guess COVID is too, to a degree. How difficult would it be for the municipality, and I'll ask this to Ms. Manning, if we push back the first two dates a month to the end of March and the end of May, leave the last two where they are, but falling 2 months after Christmas, which tends to be a very expensive time of year. That last due date in February, the last week of February, I guess you can say every due date causes problems for people, but I think that February one is maybe more difficult for some people. So I just wonder, Valerie, would considering pushing back those first two due dates a month, would that completely mess up our financial ledger? Would it be something that maybe we could think about? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kentner, to Harley, Mayor, anyway, that one. No, the tax due dates are just what you've established, and that's been like that for 20 years. Other municipalities have one installment and it's an interim bill. Technically, like taxes could be billed on the first day of the month, the year, right? So you could bill the whole amount January 1st if we were ready. So changing those due dates is not a huge deal. Your money coming in might change a bit. That would be your problem. And realizing that we have to pay the county at the end of March and the end of June and the end of September. So we kind of budget for that, or we kind of look for those numbers as well. The other thing, we do have options. So we promote pre-authorized payment plans so people can budget throughout the year. There's a lot of people that are on a monthly plan. And that's just calculated over the 12-month period. So it's really whether you guys thought you wanted to change those dates or not.
If I can also just jump in through your worship. Val and I also, in this meeting, actually, it kind of provoked us to think, should we be proposing a little bit different of a calendarization of reports to be in a different timely fashion? And, again, I think it brings up an excellent question of, it's an opportunity, I think, with me being here to ask, is this something that we've just always done, or should we keep doing it this way? So I think you've brought a great part of this equation, to keep with the financial, that we probably just need to kind of look back at a number of pieces. And are we just kind of rolling forward as we've always done? But also, is there an advantage and an opportunity? And if we should move to making a recommendation out of that analysis, I think we would also want to give people ample time to transition and or options so that we remain as flexible as possible, because to your kind of intro to this topic, it does have a lot of effects on people, and the more time and information we can share up front would be very important of the part of the process. But sounds like there's nothing legally to prevent us from.
Well, thank you, Ms. Manning and Ms. Buckham. I just wanted to throw that out for maybe future thought, future consideration, and it sounds like maybe there will be some. I guess in keeping along with the 150th anniversary, I know early in 1875 there was discussion around the Meaford Council table whether taxes should be collected 1st of November or the 1st of December, and so I guess there's a little bit of history here. Okay, thanks so much for your responses.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on this? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, we need a motion here to appoint a chief administrative officer. The recommendation that this be taken and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. And this is a piece of business we're going to be glad to have behind us instead of in front of us. And so who's going to move this? Councillor Brandon Porter and Councillor Bell seconded. I don't think there's any discussion. Let's vote. All in favor? Did you have a comment, Deputy Mayor?
If I may, Your Worship, I just wanted to take a second to congratulate Kim and to thank you. We are delighted that you have joined us already in the short time that you've been here. I'm seeing positive changes and decisive actions that are I'm really happy with, and I believe this whole council is. So we're just very grateful to you. Thank you and welcome.
Okay, now we need a motion to move into Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Uhrig. The first item is Development Services, and the recommendation is that the Committee of the Whole receive report Development 2024-17 Ontario Land Tribunal Appeal received. Re 412 Miller Street zoning bylaw amendment for information purposes. Mover and seconder for that, Councillor Bartley and Councillor Forder. Is there any discussion of this issue? Do we want a presentation? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Obviously, this is in the hands of the OLT, but I was just curious if staff kind of had any idea of roughly how long they figure it would take until there is a decision made on this matter, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great question and one that I have only an estimate. So other ones that we've seen going between 6 to 9 months before we get to the hearing. It depends on the complexity and what sort of issues are brought forward. So I don't 100% know what the issues that they will raise. It's very broad at this stage. So it was basically that the application didn't conform to the planning instruments, so the planning documents, like the official plan and all of that stuff. So because we don't know exactly how much the appellate will bring forward, that will make a difference in how long of a hearing it might be. But we've been hearing from our experience in the last few that we've had, they've been coming fairly quickly. Within 6 months or so, we've been getting dates. We'll probably know more in the next 2 to 3 months, and we can let you know at that time.
Any other questions? Then all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next recommendation that the Committee of the Whole receive report financial 2024-07, 2023 municipal investment performance for information purposes. So a mover and seconder for this, Councillor Greenfield and Deputy Mayor. And are you going to speak to this?
I just thought I would speak first, actually, and then any questions probably Val is best to speak to. So I'm just getting brought up on the screen here for your awareness. On page 2 of our investment report, I just want to bring forward a couple of edits. There's actually 3 edits that for your awareness. The first one being the original reports stated that 3.41 was the total amount of the investment, but in actual fact, doing our recalculations, we missed a portion of the accrued interest. So we're asking that we can adjust that report. It actually is to the better at 4.7. So the impact, of course, of finding that adjustment, it led to updating the total amount of our investment gain. So instead of the 800,000, it goes up to the 1.2 million. And then following suit, the part of the investment that wasn't calculated is actually shown correctly in the report at 2.2. However, on Appendix 2, which you don't have in this report, but it's the appendix, that's where our number needs to be adjusted. And then finally, we will also be amending and adjusting the graph. Again, it just follows suit with that one update, and appreciate your patience as we fine tune and do our double cross checks. And that's how this was found. So just wanted to bring that to your attention before we ask any further questions about the report, that you had that clarity on it. And we'll submit that through so that this also gets updated with the public.
Questions for Val? Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Mayor Kettner, and thanks for correcting that. It was my question. Most of our investments were at 5% and it didn't make any sense to me. 3.4. One page said 872, one said not. Anyways, you've straightened that out and I appreciate that. Question one. Our GICs at Meridian, is that in this figure? Because you only calculate them when they come due, or is that in this figure?
Through you, Mayor Kentner, yes, GICs, there's an accrual in that 1.2
Okay,
at the end of the year. We take all of our interest in, so every time we cash a GIC in, we put the investment income in that account.
okay, but there's still be outstanding that haven't come due yet. Would that, them amounts be in this?
No, that's an accrued amount as of December 31st.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So here's a can of worms I want to open up. When we financed the library, we were led to believe that there was going to be $1 million from the DC charges. We were led to believe that that money was already in the bank. It turns out it's not, and we have to borrow it from the DC charges. I was just wondering, does it make any sense at all to use some of this money to pay off that loan to the library through the DC, or is it better to leave it as is? I was just trying to get rid of some of the debt that we really honestly didn't think we were going to have.
So there's two parts to the library. There's a loan that the taxpayers pay, and then there's the DC portion. I think the proper answer is we should review the whole package and check to see where we should put it. I think we have to look at DCs because that's a growth thing, right? So over time, the DC should pay off that portion of the loan. But I think right now I would like to table it and review the whole funding of the library.
Go ahead. Okay, it's just a thought and kept me up the other night, so I thought I'd ask it. Now we're talking DCs. How close are we to getting a new DC bylaw in place?
I can speak to that. We were actually meeting this morning to just go over our approach and when we'll do the engagements. So at this point in time, without having totally mapped out all of the exact portions, but certainly it's of our opinion that we're in a good space, but we do want to do some engagements with the developers before going into the actual full formal public notification period of the 60 days. So certainly, again, just because we know that this is actually a big difference for a lot of our developers, but that we'd be looking to bring it to council in its entirety with our heart on our hand on our heart to say this is what we think we need to be doing. So it's most likely after the summer, but just to kind of, prepare council. But I do also want to do that thorough review with the developer community to make sure that we're in a good space, but also keep our prudence with our tax and our rate payers to make sure that we're doing all that we can to, make sure they don't carry any of the burden of the development that's coming.
So when you say after summer, is that when the 60 days will start?
No, I think, no,
Time is of the essence because we are missing out
that's right.
on some, and
And we've calculated that risk as well. So we are, like I say, we met today and we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon to kind of finalize our approach. And then I can give you a specific date. But we do think it's going to be very important to do an engagement whereby some of our small developers in town, we want to go and have one-on-one conversations and make sure that we're not excluding them from, I'll say the overall outcomes.
okay, thank you.
Other questions, Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the adjustment that was mentioned early on, the report says that we're just shy of 29 million. Is that number still correct?
Sorry, in the investment report, I just want to make sure I'm not the right one. Yes, that is correct. Yep. Yeah, the same number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a deputy mayor.
Thanks, your worship, and I really appreciate the conversation about the library, Councillor Bartley. Thank you for bringing that up. Because I know it's suggested in the report that we look at sort of a one-time reserve, which we find works very well at the county level to put, you know, those funds into that reserve, the discretionary part anyway, so that if something arises later on that we need funding for, we've got a pot, so to speak, to draw from. So I just wondered, Val, if you could speak a little bit to a one-time funding reserve and if that really was the direction you were heading in here.
I'm not sure. I know what the county does, and anything surplus wise goes into that one-time funding reserve. And then they choose, it's not earmarked for anything specific. So you can take it out and you can use it for various items. And that's perfectly fine if that's what we want to do. A lot of times during our budget process, even this year, you chose $75,000 towards the splash pad or whatever, and you kind of dwindle down your surplus as you go. So the one time, that would be anything extra. I think that too is a council decision. If we want to start moving towards a one-time reserve that we can hit and miss for whatever we want, I don't see an issue with it, if that answers your question.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you to Ms. Manning, our one funds, Valerie, it says in the report the maximum allowable is 15%. Now I'm assuming that's 15% of our overall investments. Is that correct?
Yes, so that, and we do have a resolution from Shirley earlier about changing our investment percentages. Currently, the GICs were giving us way more money investment wise than one fund was. It was kind of actually declining. So we kind of put a hold on what we're putting in one fund, and we've been putting more in GICs, which currently, if you look at our report, I think we're at 58% and we're really only allowed to be at 50%, but that's from our policy. So we need to update the policy to reflect proper numbers.
Thanks for that. I was just wondering where, approximately where the one fund payment was. Like at one time it was about 9%. Now that's a few years ago, but it has slid by the sounds of it. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Forder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I guess, to Val, just to satisfy my curiosity, I'm just curious to know, does Meaford staff engage in discussions with other municipalities regarding investment performance to share and learn best practices and things of that nature? Just curious to get your comments, please.
I have talked to the county before, but not as much probably as we should.
Anyone else want to comment? I'm just going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody's done something pretty right. Because this is an excellent performance in times that are not noted for being great for investors. So.
Yeah, just a similar kind of note, and maybe to also address a bit of your comment, Councillor Forder. I think there is opportunities to do, I'll call it just even more cross training, job shadowing, those types of things will be part of the leadership team here. And I'm just bringing in more and more of those components. I myself also have great cohort in the AMTCO group of CAOs, and I found that it's something that I'd like to bring to this team as well. So something over the course of time, I think there'll be more opportunities to for Val and the other leadership teams and managers within our own municipality. I think there's great opportunities for people to understand what we all do. It's very diverse work across the municipality, but also within our county and then amongst other municipalities of all different sizes. I know when I was preparing for this role, I also looked at councils in BC and in Saskatchewan. I just think there's so much we can truly learn across the way. So that will be something I think you'll see more of in the next year, certainly, and in the years to come.
Are we ready to vote then? All in favor? Thank you. The next one is the recommendation that Committee of the Whole receive a financial report 2024-08 long-term debt update for information purposes. Mover and a seconder for this one, Councillor Forder and Deputy Mayor. Great. Of this or questions for Val, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And Val, I did have a question, kind of overlapping page 6 and page 7 of the report. I just wondered if you could kind of enlighten me or clarify what growth projections are used to calculate as we go forward the additional debt that we are able to take on. It speaks to 5% over 20 years, but how do we calculate growth numbers or levy increases that factor into the creation of that number?
I believe we have like a percentage calculator in the back end. And so we've just projected, I'm getting an answer. That comes directly from our ARL report. So it actually is calculated by the province. But I do know we use some spreadsheets back in where we projected what borrowing we're going to do coming forward. And I think that would be the wastewater treatment plant. And I think we also have another one in there as well for bridges that we haven't removed yet. But our other problem is that for the wastewater treatment plant, we're going to be pretty much using our whole debt payment limit for that.
Speak to that, Kim. Okay. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've been on council long enough that sometimes I've had some very happy comments about how our municipality has been getting money, putting money into reserves and getting in our investments. And we're looking in a really positive place. Our long-term debt, even with this small sampling of a chart on our page 6, we're just under 10 million, 29 in reserve. Great. Unfortunately, what our treasurer has just said, it's a very scary chart into the future. As it's projected, even with certain things I'm sure that senior management's taken into account with possibilities of monies from the feds or from the province, those things that we have to seek, that we need, just that line in our report around 2031 to 2033. And Valerie has just said we're virtually going to max out our long-term debt. By that sort of not so pleasant comments, I'm not able to go to AMO this year. And I know many of you on council are. I hope that you've already arranged for a meeting with a minister. We're not alone. I heard something on the news this morning about all municipalities are facing heavy infrastructure money. And to be one of those voices at AMO that has audience, that reinforces the fact our population right now is greater than 11,000 people. It has grown, but we're not at 15 yet either. And with the number of households that we've got in the commercial properties, this number that we're going to be looking at is a very daunting situation. So we've done really well, Valerie, with investments of monies that we have in our reserves. We're doing well. This municipality, from a historical note, dug itself out of a bad place in 2010. And that council of that day, 2010 to 14, was a very brave council. And they levied some pretty heavy taxation to the residents and dug us out of a dark place. So we've done a lot better on that. And we've all contributed to making it better. But what's facing us in the future? We've all received reports in the past about the state of the infrastructure, bridges and roads, and how many $1 million a year we should really be putting into that. Someone said not long ago that this council should have been looking at the wastewater treatment plant a long time ago. Well, that's an okay comment and it stands for itself. But this council and most of us here started in 2014. We took that bull by the horns and basically said, well, let's start doing something with roads and bridges and start doing a tax levy every year. And we have made gains doing that line of thinking. At the same time, when we talk about the wastewater treatment plant, and this is a positive thing, this is a positive comment, we knew that our wastewater treatment plant was basically aging out. But we also received some reports from senior staff that said, we're going to look at what kind of water we're treating. Are we treating water we shouldn't be? Are we getting infill? Are we getting water coming from sources that should not be going to the plant? Can we eliminate doing that or minimize that to extend the life? They've done a great job doing that. They've put smoke things and pipes and all kinds of technical things to do to help stay that. But the scary number is, and I'm off on my number. When I first started hearing about building a new wastewater treatment plant, I heard a number like 20 million. I don't know, I stand to be corrected. Is the number over 40 million now? If we wait another 3, 4, or 5, then you do a mathematical, where are we going to go with this? So you've listened to me talk for a little bit, and I appreciate that. I implore you to get in front of a minister. We're not alone, and tell them we are looking for financial help, period, from the upper level of government, because we certainly got places we can put the money if it starts coming our way. And I know you, Madam Deputy Mayor and Mr. Mayor, I know you probably have already got yourselves lined up, and I encourage you to have a great meeting when you get to AMO. Thank you.
I guess Councilor Urick is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So yes, Tony, you're right. And actually at the last conference, we were in front of infrastructure and it was asked, and it was pointed out that many municipalities are in the same boat. And it was asked, you know, what is going to be done to help? They listened. They said they would. We're waiting. And I'm sure it'll be asked again. So in terms of your, I had kind of a similar question when you talked about, you've got the bridges down here, the anticipated for long-term debt is 17, and you've got estimated 36 over the next 10 years for the water treatment. And I'm just curious because you're right. We've heard once upon a time it was 30, and yeah, if everybody had a crystal ball, you would have built it. The school would have been larger pre-COVID, you know, all these things, nobody has that. So I'm just wondering where that $46 million figure is based on over the next 10 years. And again, I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I know we don't know what to expect from the Feds. The Feds are problem regarding this, but I'm just wondering where that number was kind of arrived at, because I think that it helps to have a little clarification on this. It's not guesswork. There is some science behind it, but it is also a bit of wish work as well.
I absolutely agree that speaking at AMO and bringing forward that message is critically important. I also think, and I'm just going to hand the messaging over to Jessica to speak a little bit more detailed on, but I think it is also really important to look at the current system, and if we paused development and we just had our folks here and the wastewater plant, and that portion is sustainable, but the portion of the growth that we are having, the lots that we've already got in works. So this is also kind of going back to that initial conversation about the development charges and how critically important they are to us, and that we cannot prolong that analysis and that work. And it is really part of managing our debt, because that expansion is to keep everybody moving forward. So I do think, again, that the developers will understand, and our fellow neighbors, and like you say, a lot of municipalities are going through this because Canada is also growing. But I would like to hand it over to Jessica just to speak a little bit to that specifics around the actual where we are in the current capacity of our wastewater plant and our project in full around the environmental assessment. Just again, we are working very diligently to make sure that we don't expose ourselves to more risk, take on any debt not required, but also ensure that the development charges incorporates the projects like Val was saying. And just a quick note too, the numbers that Val is posting is on the current day development charges, which we know have been, kind of, I'll say, not updated in some time. So we do need to recognize those will be changing in an upward fashion. But Jessica, do you mind just speaking a little bit to the project and the wastewater plant? Because I think it's quite relevant to Councillor Bell's comments.
Through you, Mayor Kentner. We are doing all of those things. I appreciated smoke testing, and you're right, like we've initiated a lot of the studies to figure out where water is getting into our system that we shouldn't be treating because it's taking up a lot of space, I think is a good way to put it. And this summer, I think we'll see a lot of those projects coming to fruition, which is just another step in trying to gain us some more capacity until we can get to the finish line on the actual plant expansion. I think we can all agree that we're in the place where we need it to expand. Like we can't keep working the way we are. We're talking about numbers of connections coming that we just don't have the space for. And that now we're working in the direction to get us there, I think is the best way to do it. The EA is underway. You'll be seeing something on that in the very near future. And we need to start working towards design of what it's going to look like, all of which will engage everyone who needs to be engaged, but it is a long process. But I think we're headed in the right direction. And to your point, in the meantime, we'll continue to try to get all this water we don't want to be treating out of the way so that we have as much space as possible until we build the expansion. But we are looking at about 4 years until that happens, if everything goes as smoothly as it possibly can.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to speak to Emma, but I think that's been well covered, and Kim and I will be there, and I believe Brandon and Rob, you're also attending, and we'll watch for opportunities. But I think we did have a very excellent delegation last year, and we'll hope that that message has not been forgotten. But I just wanted to also add Director Wiley and I have been having a discussion the last few days about the Lakeshore Algonquin project because I was trying to understand. We're doing water, wastewater, stormwater servicing, but what we are not doing is the wastewater, the sewer pipes down in that project. And when I questioned why not, the response was we don't have the capacity to take on those extra homes right now, because I thought, well, when the road's dug up, why wouldn't we put in all of that piping? But we just don't have the capacity now to add those homes into the system. So it was a bit of an education for me to recognize that these kinds of difficult decisions have to be made by our staff of, where the best allocation should go with at this point in time when we have all of this growth ahead of us. So that's just how tight I think our numbers are at this point in time that, we can't and shouldn't try to take on those additional homes when we've got the new developments underway. So I just very much look forward to the report on moving forward with the expansion and recognizing how much that will ease everything and how then we can accommodate the investment that wants to find its way to Meaford.
Councillor Bell?
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. With what you've just said, Madam Deputy Mayor, how does this affect the planning department? Because if what the deputy mayor from conversations having and it's not being in, and a developer says I'm putting in 200 units and there's some construction starting, but it sounds to me like they can't do 200 units. How is this hitting the planning department? Because we also, as a municipality, cannot tell someone who shows interest in coming here, I'd like to build something, tell them, no, you can't come.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that's a great question. I think it's really important. It's certainly something that we always have on the radar. So in planning, where we know that the plant has capacity challenges, that it only has such a certain lifespan. So we let developers know about where we are in that project as soon as we talk to them from the first day. And they often want to know exact information, like when will the plant be built? How many units are left? Like they want all of this that we cannot give them exactly. So we give them the public information on the website. We talk to them in a little bit more depth about what that might mean in terms of the nuances, like, well, if you were coming online on this date, would you be able to get an agreement because the plant would be the next month? Like, all this stuff. So we try to have those conversations early on. So everybody who's been dealing with us on a pre-consultation is hearing about our challenges right up front. Some of those folks know that they're a few years out, and so they're banking on coming in after the expansion or some upgrades happen. So if they have 20 units that they're trying to build, they may be able to get in before that. But if they want to come and do a 400 unit subdivision, probably they're looking at later for some of those phases. So all of the developers are aware. And of course, it's not new to other municipalities in our area, and certainly in Ontario, these are challenges. And so I think there is some tension there because obviously everyone wants to be the one who gets the allocation. But that allocation doesn't happen until we have ourselves in a much stronger position of that project. So at the time of signing agreements with them, and we've done the engineering and we're satisfied that that development can go forward. So it's something that planning starts with at the very early stages of discussions, and then it works its way through the system right into the final approval stage, if that answers the question sufficiently.
Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you, Denise, for the explanation. It actually that did help as an overview, and I kind of understand, and you're right, because they do parse it out in phases, so it makes sense that they're looking at long-term graduation of building. I guess my question is, and I think about it literally like Collingwood not that long ago, literally said, we're stopping because we have no ability or capability to do that. So my question is, when you reach a saturation point and you get to the point where now we know that there's enough development that says we can't do that. So where does that leave the guy that wants to build one house and is coming in and saying, I just want to build a house, and I know that phase 3 and 4 of this is going to come in. So how does that balance between immediate need for small scale versus large scale building and impact? Not an easy question, I apologize.
Yeah, I really appreciate you breaking this conversation in for me, sitting in just, as a favor and then getting the hot seat. No, just kidding. These are not new kinds of questions. These are great questions that your counterparts in other municipalities are asking too. There's certainly hot topics. So what you're asking, I understand, is how do we mitigate the situation that we've seen other folks be in where they're at the point where they have to say no to a person building a house. And I think that's why we're doing so much work right now before that happens, so that we can be ready for that. And we're going to be allowing for some of those, building permits to go forward for the one-offs. But then slowing down any bigger developments to a reasonable level as we get closer to that finite resource. And I think that's an answer. I don't have I wish I could say we have an app and it's managing it. I think that's probably been invented already, but I don't have it with me today, but we probably do need one. But it's something that's on our radar. We're not there yet, but we don't want to get there. I don't want to get to the point where I'm talking to you in a while and say, yeah, no one's allowed to build any houses. And that's not where we are today. But I do understand that some folks have been in some municipalities. And we're trying to get ahead of it so that doesn't happen.
Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Kentner, an added bonus material is also that infill. So if you're building one house, infill is already included in capacity, right? So when we're talking, we're running out of capacity, it's new connections. So if you're building a house and demoing a house, you don't have to worry about it. It's more, if you're a new user on the system is more the challenge. I just wanted to, those one-off folks might be okay.
Thank you, Jessica. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Greenfield, did you have a question?
Thanks, Mayor Kentner, and thanks to everyone around the table. Some good discussion. We need more of this type of discussion around our council table. I don't know where to begin. I'll try to be brief. Back in January 1st, 2001, when we amalgamated, we were promised savings in administration, savings in our new municipality for our taxpayers. 3 municipalities combined, their insurance was to go down likely at least $100,000. We could likely get along with fewer vehicles, fewer heavy equipment. Well, just to touch on the insurance, that was January 1, 2001, we amalgamated, and I'll just ask you to remember what happened on the 11th of September that year. So much for the insurance savings. There were none. Our insurance policies actually went up. Not because of something that happened in the municipality of Meaford. Anyway, we had financial problems. There's no doubt about it, and we imposed very heavy taxes on our residents, and that was a very bitter pill for all of us to swallow. But we've had predicted growth for a couple of decades, really. It's happening, and there will be more, or at least there will be more developers coming to us. We know that wastewater treatment plant has to be expanded, rebuilt, and expanded. Yes, that's going to be a challenge, but that's a challenge we have to meet, we have to encounter, and we'll do that. We'll do that. Our neighbors to the southeast of us we talked earlier about development charges, over $90,000 per detached home for development charges in the blue. I'm not suggesting our DCs have to go like that, but if we are indeed a spin-off of the Blues development, maybe we should have a chunk of that spin-off development charges in our municipality. I don't think that's going to drive developers away. So let's admit, yeah, we got a challenge here. It's going to be difficult, but let's not throw up our hands in despair and say, oh God, we got to have help from the province and the feds. I hope we do get it. We need it. There's no doubt about it. But you know, have faith. We'll manage this. We'll handle this. We'll get through this. And these huge debts that we will incur, again, I've said it before, we got to look at them more as investments in the future. And there's nothing wrong about investing in our future, our kids' future, our grandchildren's future, the future of this municipality. So we'll get through it. Hang in.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. No, I wanted to put my 2 cents worth in. Did we get our application for the grant in time for sewage plant?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, because the Minister of Infrastructure told us personally that good behavior will be rewarded, and I'm looking for that. But if we said today, yep, we're going ahead, it'd be 5 years, wouldn't it, till we open?
Through the chair, yes, we were talking about it this morning, so this is a very timely conversation. We were figuring between 4 to 5 years for it to be functioning.
I'm a butcher and I figured that out. Oh,
Amazing.
because this decision has to be made soon, just so you know. And we can operate on the sewage treatment plant that we have right now for our residents right now. The addition is for new development, and new development should pay for it. But we do have to make a decision very soon.
Kim?
I just want to also, part of, you've heard that we've been talking about this quite in detail. And as a team, we're also putting in not just, the recommendation of how to go forward, but also how are we going to monitor it? Because we've also mentioned how tight of a, I'll say, cash flow we would be running, and what is our acceptable lapse time or buffer, that, because as many of us we've seen projects, there needs to be a really high sensitivity so that we never get to that place of the lessons learned of having to turn down development. But we also know that some, even to, their best of their abilities and or their wants, they may not go forward with the exact amount at the time they had previously spoken of. So you're right, we do have to kind of use those development charges as our method to paying for that forward work. But then as we embark and engage on that work, we need to be really in tune and have a very strong monitoring process in place, so that if one of them doesn't go forward, it doesn't mean that we take on more debt load. So it's more of an awareness that is also part of our conversations about how we will monitor as we go through this process, because it's a probable recommendation that will be going into this type of project. And then, like I say, I'm just very conscientious that we need to monitor it with a high degree of sensitivity, and that we're constantly sharing that information with you so that you know exactly where we are as the developers push and pull on their projects and what that means to our own internal project at the wastewater.
Are we ready to vote on this? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. The next item is that Committee of the Whole receive report financial 2024-09 annual development charges, treasurer's report for information purposes. Mover and a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Greenfield. Discussion of this recommendation. Already? Call the question then, all in favor? And that is carried. And item E is recommendation that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve the transfer to and from reserves and reserve funds as itemized in report financial 2024-10 non-budgeted year-end transfers. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Forder and Councillor Bartley. Discussion on this item. Again, looks like let's go ahead, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. On page 53, the water and the wastewater surplus were very high. Is that because there was work that wasn't completed, or?
I would say yes. That there wasn't work completed. I think some of the contracted services were a little lower than they should have been. But other than that, I would say it's work not completed.
I wouldn't mind a report on that because we argue over the 8% every year. And one of these years, we might not need that.
We can do a summary of that.
Any other questions or comments here? If Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. In appendix 2, the reserve and reserve fund transfers. The first item, the building code enforcement, that $153,000. Does that refer to back to 2022, or is that the number for 2023? That, and I just can somebody just explain that a little further to me, please?
It's for 2023. So that's that makes the building department go to zero. So we had to fund the 153 to make that building department balance for the year.
Now, it seems to me if, and I may be oversimplifying this, and tell me if I am, but it seems to me we had something like $66 million in building permits last year. Does that mean even with $66 million in building permits, we still ended up over $150,000 short in the department, or am I looking at the wrong combination then?
Yes. We were short in that. So I think it was around $645,000 that we budgeted in revenue, and it might have been 400 and something that we received in revenue from that 66 number.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Actually, the 153 number is a lot lower than it was at budget time, I believe. I think somebody must have made up something.
The 153, I'm not following.
At budget time, I think we were looking at the building department was short even more than that. I think that's a better figure than a budget time. I will look it up, but I'm pretty sure that is a lot better than a budget time.
Any other questions? You're ready to vote on this? All in favor? That is carried. The section on financial services is item F. The recommendation that Committee of the Whole receive financial report 2024-11 reserve and reserve fund balances, an update for information purposes. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Yorick and Deputy Mayor Keaveney. And discussion on this item. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had two questions, if I may. The BIA balance, $69,969.42. Does this reserve roll into Main Streets and become funding for them, or what happens to the BIA reserve?
I'm gonna say, I guess that's your choice, but I think you would want to just fund as you go, not necessarily give them that whole amount at one time. I think I think this year's budget, 2024, was $25,000 that we were funding, I think not from the BIA budget. But I think the BIA itself, I would do it as you go, not give it all at one time.
Okay, so if I may, Your Worship, then that would become a bit of a discretionary reserve and Main Streets could come and request funding, something of that nature.
I think so. We should maybe review that reserve, how it's worded, because all we did is close out the bank account to be able to put it into our own funds.
Thank you.
Councillor Yorick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To piggyback on Deputy Mayor. So you said the Main Street 25 didn't come from BI's, because I thought that's where it was earmarked to come from. I'm just curious if it didn't come from there, where it did come from. Sorry.
And I could be confusing the years. Last year, the 25 came directly from tax dollars, I believe. This year, we might have budgeted the 25 to come from reserve.
Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, thank you. I do have a second question for Val. The CIP balance, $282,701.10. I'm curious kind of how we got there, and if we have that amount of money in reserves, why are we turning down applications from 2024 for funding?
I don't know about turn down applications. The $70,000 for 2023 was not spent, so that $70,000 has gone into this reserve balance, because realizing this is the December 31st balance. So the two CIPs that came at the beginning of the year would be funded from last year's amounts, and then there would be money for this year. So they're looking at the $50,000, but there is money in that reserve. It would just depend on what they're asking for allocations.
Worship, if I may follow up, because I know a service club in town was going to present an application and was told that there was no more funding available for this year. So maybe we should have a second discussion about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe we can follow up if because yeah, just like Val saying, from our side of things at this time, and maybe somebody had some different information at the time, but maybe you can send us the service group that would be interested in the program now, and we can take another look at that, because yeah, there's absolutely for the 2024 budget availability.
Councillor Bartley, you had a question?
Thank you. No, Mayor Kentner, actually, I think I was going to answer that question. We were doing 70 because the county was giving us 20. They stopped that, so now it's 50. And we have a policy that we're going to give 50,000. So when the 50,000 is gone, unless we change that policy, it's done for that year. That's my understanding.
Except, Your Worship, if I may, we do have a significant amount in reserves, so yeah.
Would that just not be when we provide you with the CIP report, we would request that it come from reserves?
Discussion? I'm going to call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. And we've one more here. That Committee of the Whole receive report financial 2024-11 reserve and reserve fund balances update for information purposes. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Forder and Councillor Bell. Discussion on this one? Questions? Let's vote on it. All in favor? And that is received. Thank you. Move on to operations. The recommendation that Committee of the Whole receive report operations 2024-11 wastewater treatment, sanitary collection, and stormwater management annual reports for information purposes. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Greenfield. Questions or discussion of this one? Councillor Forder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This is quite the report. So I think I have a couple questions here. So in the report in Appendix 5, the Meaford Wastewater Treatment Plant Annual Report for the year 2023, what would have led to a notably higher phosphorus concentration in the September 2023 report? It seems like it's exceptionally high. And my second question to that was, because my understanding is that we do not have the mechanism for phosphorus removal at the plant, does staff believe that phosphorus removal would be something that we need now or might need in the future? Thank you.
For you, Mr. Mayor. That one, I think the only thing we could figure is there was an operator error, why it was significantly higher than before. I don't want to get into the whole sampling procedures, but phosphorus removal is a proposed upgrade in the new wastewater treatment plant. So going forward, we won't be able to have the phosphorus that we currently have leaving the plant.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. And just sort of a follow-up question is that the facility informed the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the MECP, about this exceedance. So I'm just curious, what happens next once the MECP is notified of something like this?
Nothing. I do everything they say to do. You notify them verbally, you notify them in writing, and I just got thanks for your feedback.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Emily, I'm curious on page 6, it speaks to sanitary pump station number 3, the overflow discharge to Pete's Creek, which discharges then into the bay. What exactly are we discharging into Pete's Creek and then into the bay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, hopefully nothing ever. But that is in the event that the pumps fail, and the wet well fills up, then it would discharge into Pete's Creek, which then requires a whole bunch of other sampling. We have never done that, but we have to notify people that there is the existence of an overflow point at those stations. I actually included in the CLI stuff, we actually now have to go around and put signs up. So far we have no feedback on what the signs need to say.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks again, Your Worship. Just through you to Emily, but there's a mention of the Big Head pumping station, and I've been wondering about this. We're talking about the rebuild at the wastewater treatment plant. I'll just throw this out to my fellow council members. I'd really like to see this Big Head pumping station. Like, what is this? I can remember when it was being built, it was a horrendous hole in the ground. And even, I mean, we're talking about maybe $40 million into a new wastewater treatment plant. I'd like maybe an hour and a half tour of these facilities, just to I got to admit, in 1970 I helped lay blocks down at the wastewater treatment plant, but I expect there has maybe been some upgrades since then. I hope so. So, am I the only one who'd be interested in taking a look at these facilities? Because to me, it'd be interesting to see just what we got here or what we haven't got here.
Through the chair, yes, there were opportunities for tours during, I believe you're right, during the election. But there is always opportunities for tours. Anytime anyone wants to see the existing, obviously we need to know in advance so people can be around to give you a tour. But we have some wonderful staff who have a lot of good stories about how it works and really understand what you're looking at. So for sure, any opportunity. And it sounds like maybe some cost savings if you've laid brick at the.
You have a question?
No, just a comment. Yeah, we did have the opportunity to tour them during election time, and even though I was a seasoned counselor, I took that. And I was quite amazed at the collection of false teeth they have down at the sewer plant.
Okay. Are you ready to vote on this issue? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. And that brings us to updates from members appointed to county council and committees and local boards. So I guess we'll start with the county council report if you have it there. Deputy Mayor.
Your worship, county council actually has not met since this council has last been together. We are meeting on Thursday, so we'll have a report at our next meeting.
So we have had our first meeting of the Ensuring Sustainability Advisory Committee. Does anyone have a report on that, Tony? If you could do that for us, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm sure that our first meeting on sustainability was atypical of all of the other advisory committees where members of staff were there talking about the code of conduct and about how you raise your hand and just the procedures of how things would roll and basic introductions and so on. But one of the things that I am really impressed is with the persons that are on that advisory committee. I really look forward. I think I had a comment in the meeting that if we can come up with one recommendation, maybe by the end of this year or early into next, that council can receive and buy into and move forward on, I think we've got great potential to do just that. I also was very impressed, very much so, on the youngest person on the committee. The young person remained fairly quiet, fairly understandable. There's a lot of technical things that were talked about, how to be at arm's length of the council itself and so on. But at the end, I put that younger person on the spot and I asked if, it's a young lady, if she'd mind, because I was intent on asking her. And she didn't mind being put on the spot. And after a lot of consideration, she said something which was absolutely profound. She said that there can be a lot of short-term solutions, but it's a long-term effect. And I thought, that is really good thinking. And I think that the whole sustainability committee will pull together with, I've got a wealth of information that's to be tapped into by those that are on this. And I know it's going to be a success. And I'm really glad that I'm there with my fellow councillor Forder, who can encourage me. And because I'm the chair, he already knows that certain things are going to probably flow from himself rather than from me. But I hope Councillor Forder you agree with me wholeheartedly, I think this is going to be simply an awesome committee.
Great to hear. Thank you very much. Other boards or committees? Go ahead, Councillor Urick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Less of a committee, I just wanted to mention in conjunction with Grey County, actually. May 30th, the Grey County celebrated the official grand opening of the Sydenham campus in Old Sound. And I just thought it was worth mentioning because it is quite an amazing facility that's literally in our backyard. It's an innovation center for skills training and trades, and we know how absolutely crucial trades are for all the development and building that's going on. So there were a number of councillors from various municipalities there. And we did get a chance to actually tour the facility, and anybody gets a chance to, I'd really recommend it because it is very impressive with all the various labs they have for electrical or plumbing or cars. It's right up to digital, modern as well. So I just want to give a shout out to that because I think Grey County has done an amazing job on creating a facility that benefits the whole region and needs to be recognized as such.
Thank you. Sure. Any other? Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and absolutely agree with Councillor Urick. That's a fabulous facility. But I also just wanted to mention this Thursday at 5 o'clock will be our second meeting of PSAC, the Pump Storage Advisory Committee, and those meetings are open to the public. And we would encourage anyone who is interested to come and attend. And you, as you can at a council meeting, can request a delegation or a presentation or ask a question. So we really do want lots of public engagement with this committee. So just a reminder for everyone listening that meeting is Thursday at 5 o'clock here in council chambers, and everyone is welcome to attend.
Great. That'd be a good primer as well for people on, the code of conduct, which is a lot of people sort of missed code of conduct 101. So, then I think we just need a motion to move out of committee of the whole at this point. Moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Forder. And moving on, we have no motions or notice of motion today. We have the minutes of the May 27th meeting to receive. Sorry.
I almost rang my bell. Oh, Your Worship, and I apologize for interrupting, but I do have a notice of motion if I may.
I didn't know that was coming. Go ahead.
And my notice of motion is with regards to the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, and I'm going to propose that we as municipality of Meaford become a member of this organization. There is an opportunity for a 50% discount for our first year, so the cost will be under $1,000. But this is an initiative that works to advance the environmental, economic, and social health of communities across, it's an international organization, Ontario, Quebec, and into the US, but its main focus is source water protection, climate change, water equity, advancing economic opportunities in the communities along waterfronts. So I felt since we are here on Georgian Bay that it might be advantageous to us to consider membership. Our neighbors are certainly a TBM and Owen Sound are and have been for a number of years. So I think I'd like to ask that our council have a look at this and give it consideration for membership.
Okay. Have the council meeting of May 27th. Be it hereby resolved, the council of the municipality of Meaford adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on May 27th, 2024. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Forder and Councillor Bell, all in favor? Carried. And is there anything from the communications list that anyone wishes to raise? Anything from the correspondence list that anybody, Councillor Forder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And through you, I would like to bring everybody's attention to number 24 on the correspondence list. This is the new youth-run bicycle shop opened recently in Victoria Village right here in Meaford. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is because this is a great example of youth entrepreneurship in our community. So I'd just like to read a little bit of a section from this letter, if you'll humor me, Mr. Mayor. The TLC Bicycle Shop, which opened May 25th, is operated by Lucas Van Horn and Tyler White. The pair first became involved in bicycle repair through the Ride Smart Cycling Education Program, which focuses on promoting safe cycling behaviors, teaching essential cycling abilities, and creating safer riders and future drivers. While attending this program, it was offered in partnership with the Ontario Provincial Police in 2021. These students expressed interest in working on their own bicycles and recognizing their passion and potential. The OPP and the Ride Smart program provided the pair with proper bike tools and manuals to assist them and build their skills in bicycle repair. And so they have a office space located right in Victoria Village, and it allows the pair to begin plans for a youth-run bike shop just for residents. And they did have a grand opening with a ribbon cutting, and there was comments from Grey County Warden Brian Milne, who said Grey County is proud to support this fantastic project, and we look forward to seeing its positive impact in Victoria Village. So I just want to give a shout out to both Lucas and Tyler, and I really want to applaud them for their efforts. And it's really nice to see youth entrepreneurship in this community. So well done to you two young gentlemen.
Thank you very much. And I just add to that, I had the pleasure of cutting the ribbon for that opening. And I said that this is a community functioning as it ought to. Just everything right came together. And I started with the parents who were there. Both mothers were there to, cheer the boys on. And it continued on. The OPP was involved. The county housing department was involved, the Rotary Club, the private sector represented by Hills and the OPP. It all started with a guy who wears so many hats at the OPP, but he saw that these kids were so into how bikes worked that he actually arranged for tools and manuals to get them started. So it was really I think that it's the first thing I've really attended at Victoria Village, and I felt very, very comfortable and at home and proud of that part of our community. So I think we're just about to adjournment here. Is there anything else for today's meeting? Well, then let's get our bells and call this meeting adjourned.